Alrighty, Travis Wayne Goodsell here. Windows did their routine upgrade, or updating, or whatever they call it, and I noticed that my speakers were muted on this upgrade turnaround, so I'm not happy with that. I never am. When I contacted Windows once about trying to prevent a certain thing from upgrading, because it just doesn't work on an older version that I have, I was informed that Windows specifically designs their systems to eventually be obsolete, so that the computers will eventually crash the hard drives, so that you have no choice but to buy a new system. So yeah, I'm not too happy with Windows, having learned that. I've already got an XP computer that I no longer use, but will use for games one of these years, if I can get around to having time to play games. Civilization 3 Complete specifically is my favorite game. So I hope nothing else has been damaged on my computers with the upgrades. Yeah, and right before Trump is about to shut down the government again. Yeah, I'm sure there's no coincidental timing in this. I've already recognized that CenturyLink was doing a test to see about how they can get away with shutting down our computer systems, and other systems also doing test runs to we are led by corruption. So speaking of corruption, because you guys don't want to hear about that stuff, you guys want Mormon dirt. That's what gets your attention. And so yes, whatever title I end up with, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you know, the Mormons, put out a hit on my life. Now, it's not a hit where they pay a hitman to come and murder me in my home with a gun or a knife or whatever. It's not some situation where they do a drive-by shooting. No, they're deeper and darker in their plots. The first attempt was F. Michael Watson. If you didn't go to my website to see the introduction to the brass plates, or if you've missed it on other videos or blogs or books, F. Michael Watson was the secretary to President Gordon B. Hinckley of the church. And when I was doing my initial Paleo-Hebrew research and had made my discovery, I was going around trying to confirm it, making sure that I had all information on the subject. So I went to the church, went to farms, all trying to find any more information than just the King Follett Discourse. And F. Michael Watson tried to have me excommunicated. Yeah, so, yeah, yippee-ki-yay. The church is true! We'll destroy you! 'Cause that's God's will! Yeah. The church I was born and raised in, and out to destroy me. Yay. So, yeah, he was thwarted, of course, because I called him out. I called his bluff. he usurped President Hinckley's authority. And so when my stake president went downtown to Temple Square to find out, hey, what's going on here? Is this true? Did you want him excommunicated? Because he thought President Hinckley wanted me excommunicated. Because F. Michael Watson was the one who wanted me excommunicated. And so stake president never returned to face me and say, no, it wasn't Hinckley, it was Michael Watson. And so I was spared in that incident. So if you don't understand how that is an attack, Utah is dominantly Mormon. The government of Utah is controlled by the Mormon Church. It's not in the sense of the legislature and the governor meet in session with the leaders of the church. No, they don't do it that way. The offices of government are filled with those who are Mormon. When you have that situation, you have Mormons who do the church's bidding because they are members. And the legislature takes it upon them to believe that they are the chosen ones to lead Utah. Yeah, they sort of get a Messiah complex, somewhat. And so they think that they're doing God's will in implementing the laws and executive orders that they do here in Utah. That's how the church controls the government. Now, if the government strays, sort of like with Prop 2 and Prop 3 that we just had in the midterms, then you see the church step in and say, hey guys, we got an idea for you. Let's change those propositions that the Utah members of the church voted in favor of. Yeah, so both the Medicaid expansion and medical marijuana, not recreational, medical, the church have been interfering with. And so, yeah, right now we have advertisements on MSNBC to Utahns asking us, pleading with us to contact our government leaders and Gary Herbert. Don't mess with our Medicaid. You know, we voted in favor for Medicaid expansion, and now the church is ordering the government, no, you shouldn't have had that on your thing to vote for anyway. And with medical marijuana, the church said vote no before the midterms, and yet the church members voted in favor for it. Church gave the bird to the church. Members gave the bird to the church. And why? Because there are sick and afflicted here in Utah who are members of the church. And the church is not happy with the sick and afflicted wanting to be healed. That's how evil the church is. And that is taking a hit out on the members of the church. Fortunately, I'm not affected by either of those two propositions. However, the church has put out a hit on me in another way. So if you're familiar with my story, you know that back in 2008, I was arrested because I was petitioning the government of Utah to get my kids back. You know, the First Amendment, you have the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. You know, that is to be on the prosecution side. Everybody knows you have the right to a legal defense, and then you get court-appointed lawyer if you're accused of something. Everybody knows that, but nobody knows that you're supposed to also get a prosecution defense. Somebody who's going to prosecute your case for you in court. Nobody talks about that. And instead, the prosecution picks and chooses who they want to represent on behalf of the state. And they're not allowed to do that. They can't pick and choose. They can't be discriminatory. And so as a result, I was denied petitioning for 10 years after my kids were taken away. The state of Utah refused to assist me in that endeavor and came after me. And yes, the church was involved in 2008 with my arrest. Because remember, when you protest, that's a crime. They don't give a damn about the First Amendment and the Constitution of the United States of America. You have no rights. You have no rights to life, liberty, and property if you go up against the government or the church in Utah. And so I was arrested. Now, in order to successfully remove me from society, CNBC yesterday reported that there are missing Saudis who have been arrested for crimes, but they never go to trial. And they've disappeared. So they've recognized a specific group of people who are going missing in several states, including Utah. They highlighted Utah in this, but it was an Oregon story where the reporter was reporting from. And so I commented, "Hey, have you checked the state hospitals?" Because I vanished, just like these Saudis on this report last night, for 6 years of my life. I was removed from the records. You know, the census was in 2010, and I was removed from society. I vanished. I don't think I'm on that census, other than a notch on those in the state hospital. And so how could they do it? How could they remove somebody from society and just cause him to disappear so that nobody knows him? Well, what happened was I had been commenting on the Deseret News posts. You know, people are allowed to comment. And I had been an active commenter with the newspaper online. And the church was directly involved and assisted in the vanishing of me. So you have to remove all records of a person. The church ordered the Deseret News to remove all of my comments so that I never existed on there. Don't believe me? Do a check. Look for Travis Goodsell, Travis Wayne Goodsell in the Deseret News, and you will find 2 replies to my original comments. You will not find my comments. They're gone. But you'll know of 2 of my comments because 2 people responded with all my comments that I did. Yep. Yeah, one was on R-rated movies, and the other had to do with the Hubble telescope, the inventor of the Big Bang Theory. So you'll see that both of those people are wrong. And yeah, the Deseret News had no problem putting wrong information in the comments of people who were ignorant. But nevertheless, it goes to show that the Deseret News was involved in the disappearance of me. The next thing that the state of Utah had to do was to figure out how do we remove him from society without being exposed by the press or other places. And in my discovery, I was able to get my discovery. They couldn't deny me that. In my discovery, it indicated that the church, with a representative from the church security, met with the government to decide what to do with me. That's not right. If you have a crime accusation against me, then take me to court, arrest me right then. No, they waited 2 weeks before they officially arrested me. So they had to figure out, what do we do with him? How do we make him disappear? It's just pure evil, guys. And so with the church being involved and those of the government representation who were there in that meeting that is in my discovery, they also indicate that they consulted with the prosecution. They don't name the prosecution. It's Mark Shurtleff. Judge Vernice Treese, who was the judge in my case, revealed that in the court when she referred to the prosecutor to talk with Mark Shurtleff about doing some things, changing some things or whatever. So I knew, oh, yeah, Shurtleff, this is a revenge arrest. Because if you're not familiar, Shurtleff was the one who thwarted my attempts to petition the government for redress of grievances and actively pursued punishing me just for petitioning to get my kids back. And so my arrest in 2008 was clear. This was a revenge by the government and the church to remove me from society. They were taking a hit out on me. And it's a different kind of hit. You know, like the Hitman's Bodyguard that came out. That was pretty funny. But Mormons will never see it. It's R-rated. And so I realized, yeah, the church is actively involved in having me removed from society. So Shurtleff searched. That's probably what happened. He had to search to find something to get me on. And when they arrested me, they didn't have a warrant. They just did it. They didn't have the charges yet. They were still looking for charges. So 2 weeks looking for anything. And they just finally agreed, okay, let's just take him in. And so I was arrested. And when I was sitting there waiting to be put into the building, the medical person came out to take my vitals. And I had the right to remain silent. And yet Utah doesn't give a damn about our rights. And so they have ways to get people to talk. Otherwise they punish you. They do not want you to get away with exposing them of crimes. And so the medical guy came out and said, yeah, I need to take your vitals. I need to ask you some questions. If you refuse to ask my questions, they'll throw you in the drunk tank until you do agree to answer my questions. Oh? Uh-huh. So I could be still in the drunk tank if I refuse to answer that medical guy's questions. Nobody would have ever known about my existence. I would still be in the Salt Lake County jail, rotting in the drunk tank. That's how corrupt Utah is. They don't give a damn about your rights. They don't care about your life. If you go up against them, they will destroy you. So I complied, because he said it wouldn't be used against me in a court of law, but he made the threat. So after my vitals were taken, I was placed in the drunk tank. Those bastards. So, yeah, I was there for several hours. Who knows how long I was there. I don't have a watch in there. And there's no bathroom in the drunk tank. There's a grate in the center of the floor, which obviously they'd hose down if need be, if somebody threw up or whatever, if they were really drunk. And so I had to use that for my bathroom, my toilet, and then eventually a jail psychiatrist would open up the slot and say, "Oh, I think you've been in there long enough. Do you want to get out?" The bird, man, the bird. And so I finally got out and sat in the pit and sat and sat and sat for hours. The process is extremely slow, and it didn't really need to be. They just didn't care to get things moving. They were taking their time. And so I eventually get my photo taken. You can go to mugshots.com to see my photo. Just type in my name, full name, and you'll see me. And you'll see that the FBI was notified on my case as well, because I have an FBI file for the arrest as well. And then after I get processed, oh yeah, there was that little girl who asked me, "Do you write books?" "I write a lot of books." Approved into the processing. It's a crime to write books in Utah. Screw the First Amendment. It's just unbelievable. And so, yeah, whatever that process was, as if it were helping me with my rights, you know, what a joke that was. Yeah. Then a psychiatrist wanted to talk with me. "Oh, nothing will be used against you in a court of law. I just want to talk." "It's a trap." And it was. It was her job to get me into the Salt Lake County Jail's psychiatric observation area, because they had no charges at this point. They didn't know what to charge me with. They just knew they had to remove me from society. And so I guess in all good conscience, they couldn't just leave me in the drunk tank. And in all good conscience, they had nothing on me. They just removed me from society when I came home from work. And, you know, guns blazing and trying to violate my right to remain silent. Because everybody is not supposed to cooperate with the police. Nobody is. If they've got an accusation against you, they need to take it to trial. You need to get a court-appointed lawyer to defend yourself against their accusation if they are wrong. They cannot violate that, but they do in Utah. And so in my discovery, the officer's report indicates that the officer that got into the police vehicle while they were all pretending to do something, that was all a plot to try to get me to confess. That was my interrogation. They locked me in the front seat of the car, the police car, and a police officer got into the back seat, and he's doing all this stuff. Oh, so you think you're smart, do you? You're smarter than me, huh? You're trying to blow up the world, huh? It's like, I have the right to remain silent, and he didn't care about my rights. He was going to get a confession out of me. He was going to be the one to do it, and good. And so it was reported in the discovery that he was able to get a head nod from me. A nonverbal communication. It's just absurd. Absurd. So, yeah. Oh, man. Even the driver, when she got in, when he forced the nonverbal communication out of me, which he didn't, she even said to him, he's remaining silent. I don't think that was an acknowledgement. Nevertheless, she still put it in her report that she had to do what was necessary to get me removed from society. So anything and everything was thrown in there against me. And so, yeah, this evaluator was now taking her turn. Oh no, nothing will be used against you. We just want to talk. And so then she, argued. It was a philosophical argument, which was ridiculous. And then she made the mistake of saying, we're a democracy. Oops. No, we're not a democracy. The majority does not rule. The United States Constitution says, orders, that we are a constitutional republic. She didn't like that answer. She all of a sudden goes and gets up from her chair, goes by me, goes and talks to the guard on duty. The guard on duty, you can tell he's pissed. He was all smiles, and then she talks to him, and he just, whoa, he's pissed. He comes over, and I'm forced into a cell where I'm told to strip down, and all my clothes are taken from me, and they're given to the jail. And then I'm sat on a chair with wheels, and I'm wheeled down into an elevator and down to the pit of the Salt Lake County Jail into what was the psychiatric observation area, where no court appearance, nope, I'm under observation. I'm a crazy person because I dared to say that we are supposed to be a constitutional republic, not a democracy. And so there I rotted for 2 weeks. And yeah, that's a torture chamber if you're not familiar with it. You are deprived. It's deprivation torture. And 2 weeks. I had to fake my way out of it to get put in Supermax. So I was there with Brian David Mitchell, the Elizabeth Smart kidnapper and rapist. as well as what was his name? The cop killer. It's not coming to me right now. He's got the tattoos all over his face. He tried or did get married to a woman while he was there in jail. You know, he's trying all these different tactics to show that, you know, he needs to have lenience against him for shooting the cop and getting caught at Arby's. So he was there too. So, you know, the cream of the crop. And there I was. For 7 months, I rotted in jail. And they still couldn't figure out how to completely remove me from society until it was clear from the discovery that they had intentions to put me in the state hospital. They wanted to pink slip me to the University of Utah hospital to do it that way, but I don't have a history of mental illness. Oops, can't get me there. My parents lied to you guys. So, yeah, a person with no history of mental illness is now going to be locked away in the state hospital. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, in order to keep a person for the maximum length in the state hospital, they have to be charged with a serious enough crime, first-degree felony. All they could get was a second-degree felony on me. None of the first-degree felonies would work. They found, Shurtleff found, that the second-degree felony of terroristic threat applied. And so he then used that as his charges. The only problem is that one count was with the church who was making an accusation against me. And Shurtleff applied that to the church as well. The only problem is that that only refers to government agencies. You can't terroristically threaten a church in the Utah law. So Shurtleff claimed the church as a government entity. Oops. Secret's out. And so they had 3 counts of second-degree terroristic threat. So second-degree felonies. And apparently that was sufficient enough. And it was aggravated because of the book that I petitioned with. They considered that the weapon of mass destruction. Damn your First Amendment rights. It's a threat. It's a terrorist weapon of mass destruction. And so, yeah, my book, Modern American Utopia, which is now available on Amazon, but yeah, it was considered a weapon of mass destruction in order to aggravate the second-degree felony charges of terroristic threat. And that was enough to give me the maximum in the Salt Lake County, or the state hospital. And so when the sociologist, or whatever she was, caseworker for the Legal Defenders Association, reported to the judge on behalf of the prosecution, she went contrary to my wishes with my lawyer, and took it upon herself to be the one to declare me not competent for trial. And so when that happens, you have no rights. The process stops and you have to be evaluated. You have no rights. I can't talk to my lawyer. Nothing. And that ain't right. You're supposed to have rights through the whole process. But Utah has found a way to destroy a person's life and take away their rights. And so the evaluator, Dr. Cohn, she used an old Russian diagnosis. You're not supposed to create a diagnosis in your evaluation. You're supposed to report on the history of mental illness. You're not supposed to create a diagnosis. It's not possible to create a diagnosis. However, Judge Treese was ignorant on this, and my lawyer didn't stand up for me to say, Your Honor, this evaluation was being challenged. I had no rights at that point, so my lawyer was not obligated to defend me at that point. And so Dr. Cohn resurrected an internationally banned diagnosis, mental diagnosis of sluggish. That's the word that the Russians used for a type of schizophrenia, sluggish schizophrenia. And the reason why the Russians used it back in the 60s was because they had political opponents that they wanted removed from society and tortured with drugs. And so yes, Utah is now doing that, bringing that Russian tactic to remove opponents from society. And so remember, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is putting out a hit on me, and the church is using an internationally banned Russian mental diagnosis. It's a fraud. It's not a real diagnosis. It's called sluggish because they needed to somehow justify having arrested a person or removing a person into the asylum in Russia when they're an older person with no history of any kind of mental illness. Me, I was 38. No history of mental illness. And so, in my case, it was sluggish. It was slow. And then finally, in one incident, it happened. And then it disappeared again. That's the Russian diagnosis. It happens just in one incident, and they used that incident to be a protest rally or something of that nature, an article published in the Russian paper, whatever. They just need one example to demonstrate, oh, there it is. There's the sluggish schizophrenia. It's now manifested itself. And so for their benefit, and Suicidal Tendencies has this right on the nose, if you're not familiar with their song Institutionalized. Institutionalized. I think it's Institutionalized. So Suicidal Tendencies, look it up. It's going to be difficult for you to hear because it's punk rock. Or hard punk rock. I don't know what they called it back in the 80s. They had different group things, country, metal, glam rock, and all that stuff. Who cares? It's music. And so yeah, that's what Utah resurrected. Russian. Yes, Utah is in bed with the Russians. And so yeah, it's 6 o'clock now. Yippee-ki-yay. And so Dr. Cohn is using a Russian diagnosis that has been internationally banned, saying that on that one night, on the 6th of August, 2008, I had a mental break. And it was a slow onset, because schizophrenia in men is supposed to manifest itself in late teens, early 20s. That's when it's supposed to exist. But I'm 38 now. I'm an old man. And so she had to call it not sluggish. She called it schizophrenic spectrum disorder. That's the word they've used to replace the Russian sluggish schizophrenia. So spectrum is a situation where anywhere on the spectrum, if it's slow onset, one-time thing, or a rapid incident, and you're now in digression. So, yeah, unbelievable. So that's what they used to remove me from society and place me in the state hospital for 6 years of my life. I was not supposed to be released. The evaluator at the hospital told me, I'm never going to let you go. You could lie. And so, yeah, they were all in on it. Dr. Vidko, and I use the term doctor loosely for psychiatrists. They are not doctors. They have no Hippocratic oath. She is told what drugs to use by the pharmaceutical companies. And so, yeah, pharmaceutical companies are a pure evil. It's not just opioids that they're having problems with. A real medical doctor has a YouTube video talking about psychotropic drugs, about how pharmaceutical companies are the ones who advertise it to the psychiatrists and order them to use their drug for certain diagnoses. And he was also pointing out that psychotropic drugs shorten the lifespan of those who take them. The pharmaceutical companies are murdering a vulnerable group, those who are diagnosed with mental illness. So the drugs that those with mental illnesses take, they're having their lives stripped from them. And the reports show that those who take drugs with mental illness die at an earlier age than a normal person who doesn't take them at all. They are exterminating those with a mental illness. And it's a slow extermination. It's not a quick thing. You don't take it, overdose, and you're dead. No, this is a slow progression, but it shortens your lifespan. And thus it is murder. Pharmaceutical companies are using the psychiatrist to murder Utahns, American citizens, and wherever else they're being used in the world. They are murdering people who have a mental diagnosis. So, yes, they attempted to murder me when I had my kidney infection. I went to the emergency room and was given an antibiotic, but it was for a different onset. They didn't realize the drug that I was taking. They thought it was a normal onset kidney infection. It was a side effect of the drug I was taking, and so they gave me the wrong antibiotic. So the nurse, when they finally got my test results, she called in a panic. Are you okay? Because we gave you the wrong antibiotic. And fortunately, I knew how to take care of myself and prevent my brain from melting with the temperature that I received. I was completely weakened, but knew that I needed to get myself in a cold tub to cool my body temperature down so that my brain doesn't fry. And yeah, it was bad. The state of Utah tried to murder me. That's the hit that the church took out on me. They know this process. They know the consequences. They can't claim ignorance. And when I was put on meds because Shurtleff ordered Dr. Vidko to get me on meds. So the first time in the hospital, she had a forced med hearing because I was fasting, a religious fast. And that was considered a danger to myself, because you can't force somebody on meds unless they get physically violent, a threat to themselves or others. You can't do it for any other reason. It has to be an immediate threat. And so Vidko had the forced med hearing, and I had a patient advocate, and he was able to say, oh, well, he was having a religious fast. And so the committee agreed, yeah, you can't force meds on him, Dr. Vidko, for having a religious fast. So she was humiliated there. And so then Shurtleff said, okay, let's do it in the courts then. And so Vidko was going to be the witness, the expert witness. And I went to court, and my lawyer finally did something for me. What an ass. But yeah, he pointed out, hey, Your Honor, this first count indicates that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a government entity. Judge Treese then turned to the prosecution, talk with Mark Shurtleff, have this removed or adjusted to a different count, and the prosecution then said, we are ceasing the proceedings, we'll get back to you. Because remember, they had to have a serious enough charges in order to justify keeping me in the hospital for a length of time, and my lawyer just exposed them as having a bogus charge against me. It now had to be lowered, and they lowered it to a Class B misdemeanor charge of being a public nuisance or something like that. And so misdemeanor charges are not going to keep me in the hospital forever. And so, yeah, their case was being blown up, trying to get me on forced medication. And you can't really call it medication, it's drugs. Psychotropic drugs that kill people. And so, yeah, Shurtleff was pissed. And he ordered Vidko, get him on drugs. And so, yes, the committee, or the panel, was personally handpicked to get me on drugs. I had no choice at that point. It was rigged. They fired the patient advocate. So I had no patient advocate with me. And the whole thing was just a joke. And so Vidko and my caseworker both testified, oh, we're scared. He's scary looking. Wah. I stay in my room the whole time. I'm not a threat to anybody. So there's no justification. There's no just cause. But I had no patient advocate. The panel was rigged. And I was forced medicated. And like I said, they tried to murder me. I almost died. And that was caused by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But there's still more. They're still trying to get me. And you can see it on my website. Those who are members of the church who are not able to rationally see what is going on. They defend the church, regardless of what the church is exposed of corruption, crime, whatever. The members protect the church. The church can rape and violently murder someone, and the members will still stand up for the church. That's how brainwashed the Mormons are. And so Mormons do the bidding of the church in defending them. And so yes, when I first started doing videos exposing the church's corruption, exposing the church's crimes, exposing the church's fraud, I was posting on my website, because I wasn't doing videos yet at that time. Doing a few, but the Book of Mormon one, yeah. Book of Mormon is the official doctrine of the fall of Adam, not Eve. That's where my bishop gave me the ultimatum threat. Pull your video, don't bother coming back to church. That's how the church gets people to put out hits on critics, on those who oppose the church, on those who expose the church. And so, yes, West Valley City Police, when I came to them saying, hey, I'm being threatened by Valley Case Management. They're giving me an ultimatum threat. The police finally sent a representative, and they threatened me. The officer had a body cam. It's on tape. And it's a hate crime, thanks to Mark Shurtleff and the church putting me in a category of having an internationally banned mental diagnosis. That still qualifies as approved by the state of Utah as a protected discriminatory person, whatever you call it. You know, I'm protected now as a person with a disability. So to attack me is a third-degree felony in Utah, and it can be aggravated by those who are in authority, because those in authority are supposed to know better and are supposed to back off. So it's aggravated when it's those in authority, and the officers blew it. They too threatened me. It's a hate crime, guys. And so the mayor, Ron Bigelow of West Valley City, is now in hot water. He's Mormon. His officers committed a hate crime against me. This is serious stuff that the Mormons are doing in defense of their church. See, because Ron Bigelow has a son who chose not to belong to the church anymore. His membership records keep showing up in our ward when he doesn't live with them anymore. So sometimes he comes back, but yeah. We have a few cases like that where membership records keep popping back up in our ward boundaries. But yeah, if you're in a position of power, if you're in a position of authority, whether it's religious, government, even business, or in this case also mental health care, you are in great jeopardy if you even appear to make threats towards someone with a discriminatory case. Hold on. And so here we're getting to an hour long here on the hit taken out against me. And so that is what it is. I should wrap things up here, I guess. But yeah, I had also indicated on my website that Bishop Hammond, Reed Hammond, when he had made the threats to me not to come to church, and so I said, okay, I'm going to do research on the church now. And lo and behold, I find out all the atrocities of the church, and I start posting all about it. I then find out, oh, he wants to have me removed from society again and forced back on drugs, because I got off the drugs. You know, when I found out that they were trying to kill me, there was no way I'm going back on those drugs. And so with the officers, West Valley City Police, I told them, I am not going back on those drugs. They tried to kill me. I'm reporting a crime to these officers. They've got it on tape. And they are in denial. They refuse to take litigation against my accusers. My First Amendment right is to petition for a redress of grievances. The prosecuting attorneys for West Valley City are now obligated because I've reported a crime. And the officers are covering it up. I went to Internal Affairs. I have yet to hear from them. Everybody's covering up for each other, and everybody's remaining silent. This is how corruption works. They're hoping that I'll just forget. I don't forget, guys. I don't have a mental illness of forgetting. I remember everything in detail. I remember everybody who's involved. I still remember my kids being taken from me. I remember all who were involved. Lester, the child molester Nielsen, our bishop. And yes, I call him the child molester because of an incident he told where he exposed himself to children, and he laughed about it. Yeah, so yeah, I gave him the nickname Lester, the child molester Nielsen. Of Riverton, I'm sure he's still there. You guys think you can get away with your crimes? No, you will not. So, there we go. We'll call this a day. But just to let you guys know, the church has put out a hit on me. They want me dead, if not removed from society again. So yes, my life is in danger. I am walking on eggshells, because who knows what they're going to do next. To say, oh, okay, we'll call that a terroristic threat. We'll reapply the internationally banned mental diagnosis from the Russians. You know, that nation who's attacking us right now, who is our war enemy. These are war crimes that the church and the state of Utah are committing against their citizens. These are war crimes. Not just the pollutions of our air, land, and water here in Utah. Those are also war crimes. But to go after a vulnerable group, to exterminate them, that's a war crime. Enjoy your day. I'll be working on the translation of the brass plates today. I finished the introduction. It's available on my website to look at. So go to my website. You'll see the page. It's very clear. Egyptian Torah. And enjoy your day.